My name is Doug Reynolds, and myself and my better half, Pam Devine, started LowCarbUSA. Basically, we got introduced to the concept of a ketone when I was 51 years old, and I had never heard of it before. And once I did all the research and I found out how brilliant it was, and it made such a difference to my life, I couldn't believe that I had never even known about this. And so I decided to try and do something to help other people learn about it that were like me, that didn't know. And that's how we got started. And we started with the idea of just putting on a conference, because the previous job that we did, Pam and I had a lot of experience on putting on conferences. I'd never been to a low-carb conference or anything, but we knew how to put on conferences. So I thought, okay, I can do this. And that was the idea. I was going to put on a conference in San Diego. This is now the 12th conference that we've done. One of which was in Jakarta in Indonesia. And one of the speakers that has come all the way from Singapore, Dr. Stephen Tucker, you'll hear from him later in the weekend. And I don't know, but maybe there's a possibility we end up in Singapore in the not too distant future as well. But it's just grown into something that has beyond our wildest dreams. And part of when I started to build a website, my idea was to provide people with information. So yes, these conferences provide a platform for all these great scientists and doctors and that to present the latest research and present their information. But there's so much more to it than that. And so I felt like people need to know where to find the research that proves that this stuff is correct. How do they find a doctor that is open to this way of life? How do they do anything with regards to this way of life? And so my idea was like a one-stop shop, right? Have a website where people can get access to everything they need to be able to live this life. And so I built this website, and it had all of these menu options. But if you clicked on most of them, it said, coming soon, for about 3 years. And I slowly but surely have managed to find the bandwidth to add all of these things in. And it's now got to a stage where I'm actually kind of proud of it. And most of the time you can go somewhere and it doesn't say coming soon. And one of the first things that I wanted to do that took me about 3 years to eventually get done was to provide a database of the research for people to be able to go and dig deeper. Because I know some people are happy to just accept what they've been told. They respect the person that's telling them, and so they think, okay, if that person believes it, then I'm happy to believe that. But some people like me are not happy with that. And so I needed to go and read all of these papers and understand in depth myself what this was all about and how it worked. And it was only once I did that I actually pulled the trigger and started to do this diet and adopt this lifestyle. So we started out, Nina Teicholz put together with Sarah Hallberg, I think, to put together a list of papers that they were asking people to talk about when they were trying to submit recommendations to the dietary guidelines as a committee when they were doing a revision of the guidelines. And so I took that entire, it was about 100 papers or something, and I've tried to find the full text of as much of it as I can that was available online. And so every one of them is listed there, and then links to the full text. And if the full text was not available, then it links to at least to the abstract, and people can see, okay, they're going to sign up for PubMed or whatever they want to do, because it's important enough that they want to see the full text of that thing. And as we keep applying to the authors in that of all of these papers, and slowly but surely they're coming back to us and saying, yes, here's the full text. And once they give us a permission, then we can put the full text up there. And then since then, we've added more and more papers. So if you if you have a suggestion of paper that you think is not in there that should be in there, then support@lowcarbusa.org. Send us a suggestion, and we will take a look at it and put it in there if it belongs there. And this is going to be kind of the theme of my opening talk here today, and that's participation. Because, and we'll get to it a bit later, but my biggest job right now is to try and help develop a consensus that establishes a standard of care. And the only way that can happen is to get people to participate. When I would first talked about it in Seattle, when we actually published the clinical guidelines, I said on the stage there that my next job is to herd the cats now and try and get all these doctors and that to have these conversations. And I've realized, trying to think of ways to do it, there just isn't. The only way to do it is to get you guys to be a part of it. We all want to be a part of this movement. So let's be a part of it. I need all of you to help me make this happen. I can't do it on my own. I just came to that realization. I can't do everything. I need you guys to help me do this. Okay. Another thing that we put in there was medical practitioners. We'd have 3 lists, actually. This is the one for the medical practitioners, but there's one for dietitians and nutritionists. There's one for sports trainers and health coaches. Anybody that is open to this conversation, anybody can go in there, add their contact information. How many of you are practitioners or whatever whose names are not on this list? Put your hands up. Okay, so let's start right there. When you get a break, I'm going to ask you guys to turn your phones off and that by the end of my talk. You can do it now while I'm talking, but not when anybody else is talking, right? But if you want, fill it in. Put your name in there. Let people know about you. It's going to help your business anyway. And then what happened, if you see in the bottom left-hand corner there, people started to ask us, like, hey, can we be certified by LowCarbUSA? And I would love to be able to do that, but I don't know who you are. You can put your information in there and say that you are open to this conversation, but I don't know that you really are. So what we did was decide, okay, we would need to have some kind of training that people would have to go through in order for me to be able to say, okay, this person is certified. So we've joined up really, luckily, just at that point when I was thinking about it, the Nutrition Network, who's a spin-off of the Noakes Foundation in South Africa, approached us and asked us if they had developed a lot of this training. So would we help them promote it? So I said, bargain. I don't have to actually provide the training now. I can just point people to it. It's brilliant. And it started out as just physicians. Now it's for all ranges of people, including now recently where they've actually done one that for actual keto coaches and stuff like that. So you don't have to be a medical practitioner. But if you want to be listed on there and be certified by us, you have to go through some of that training, whichever is appropriate for you. And you have to be a part of our professional membership groups. There's different membership groups for dietitians, nutritionists, coaches, and physicians. It's a professional community. We're all professionals, and the only way we can build this and make it sustainable is if we have something that everybody participates in. So if that's the case, then you get a badge next to your name that says that you're certified by us. One of them's right here. Actually, I don't think Brett's speaking later. I don't think he's arrived yet. So that's something that you can do. This is just the page for the Nutrition Network with all the different courses that they do. Is Adele here? Oh, she is. Okay. I always put her thing up there because I love to sing her praises. But yeah, let's go back to this one. Back in 2018, I think, Gary Taub suggested that we have a feedback session for practitioners for them to get up to the mic and tell us about their experiences trying to implement low carb in their practices, for the ones that were brave enough to try. And what are their challenges, what are their successes, all of it. Kind of was the theme of Gary's book, so he was happy to be a part of that. But he suggested that we get Adele to come and kind of mediate that session. And when I invited her to do it, she sent me this document that was like a brain dump of everything she had on her mind. And I tell people every time, it made me weak at the knees. It really did. It was so overwhelming in the scope that to me, it wasn't even conceivable. But the more I read it over and over and over again, the more I realized that we already had some building blocks in place. And after a while, I was talked back and forth with her, and I said, you know what, we can do this. We can make this happen. And so part of the document that you sent me was this official legal definition of standard of care. Okay, and the stuff that really kind of jumped out at me was training, community, and those two things mainly. So we already the whole mission was to try and develop a community, right? So yes, we're doing that. It's a professional community. And all of the doctors in there, especially the ones that are going to become certified, are actually going not only through their training as a doctor or whatever, but now they're going to go through this training specifically in nutrition, which they don't get when they're in college. And so why can't we have a standard of care that is not for carb eaters? Because our metabolisms are different if we don't eat carbs. And so a lot of the current one doesn't apply to us. I'm not saying that the other one's wrong. All I'm saying is that there needs to be an alternative for those of us that don't eat carbs. And so we put together a panel of advisors. I'm not a doctor, so I didn't have anything to do with the content of this document. But we put together a panel of advisors from Professor Tim Noakes in South Africa, Dr. Gary Fetke in Australia. I know Adele spoke with Asima Lotra in the UK, Dr. David Unwin in the UK, people all over the world, really respected physicians and scientists that were happy to be a part of a panel that Adele then bounced this growing document through. She wrote this thing, and I still have never come up with the words to describe how much work she did to make this document a reality. And at the time that she was doing it, she was finishing up and defending her dissertation for her PhD. Absolutely astounding. And I'd like you all, since she's in the room, to please give her a huge hand of applause. So the thing is, though, that the guidelines, and if you look at the definition, if we go back to that, it even states there that it doesn't come from the training, it doesn't come from public health policy, or even from clinical care guidelines, which is what this document is. This is not standard of care. Standard of care is now all of you guys in practice agreeing that this is what the right course of action is in any particular situation. And for that to happen, we need to have some kind of agreement. So we published them back in May on our website. How many? Okay, so first of all, everybody's a practitioner of some kind, medical practitioner. Put your hands up. All right. How many have not? Keep your hands up. How many of you, put your hands down if you have been to this, have you seen them? Okay, so there are still a few of you, maybe you're new to the thing and that. Please, I'm asking you, go and have a look at this. How about all of you who are not practitioners? Put your hands up if you're not practitioners. How many of you have taken a copy of this to your doctor? Keep your hands up if you have. Okay, there we go. Thank you. That's what I'm asking you to do as part of this community. If you go down, if you scroll down, you can read the document right there on the page. And if you scroll down even further, you'll see you can go to the English version, preferably for most of you, and print it out and take it to your doctor. Some of them are going to bin it. Some of them would be amazed. A lot of them I know kind of believe it, but they're scared to do anything or advocate it for their patients because it's not currently standard of care. Take it to your doctor and ask them to share it with their colleagues if they find it of value to them. Show them where this website is so that they can go and have access to it. And something that we are incredibly proud of as well is that since we published that, it's now available in like 5 different languages. 2 different versions of Spanish, German, Dutch. Dutch is still being done, French. Incredible. And all of these people have done all of this work for nothing. Not one single person has taken 1 cent, including Adele. In fact, that's part of it. In our statement, it even specifies that people were not paid anything for this, so that nobody can tell us that there's a conflict of interest or something, or that they were paid to say this. And if I go back, that's another thing. How many people here? How do we go back? There we go. Right at the top there, we have a list of people that support what we've got here. Because this consent, the standard of care, the current standard of care evolved since the beginning of time, since doctors first were doctors, right? And as they learn more, the standard of care has evolved. We are basically trying to escalate that process for this version of it. So, again, how many of you have gone and clicked on that thing and filled in your information as a practitioner to say, I support this? That's how we can, as that list grows, at the moment it's a few hundred. I want thousands and thousands and thousands of names on there, so that when somebody at some point says that's not standard of care, we can point to this and say, yes, it is. But we can't do that unless everybody goes, I can't go and click on there and fill that information in for all of you. You have to do it. Those people that are listening to the stream, everybody that listens to this video afterwards, go and click on that thing and put your information in. If you don't agree with it, don't do it. But most of you are here because you do. Or you're at least trying to find out about it. And once you do believe it, go and click on there and fill your information in. It's critical. Okay. While we were in Australia last year, a film crew came out to San Diego. They spoke with Brett Scher and Brian Lenskes and a bunch of Brian's patients as well. All as part of a documentary that they're making about this whole low-carb lifestyle. And I was kind of disappointed that they kind of contacted me. I said, but I'm in Australia, I can't be there. And they're basically funding this themselves. And so they couldn't afford to bring the whole crew back out to San Diego. So after I got back from Australia, I flew to Boise, Idaho, where they were, and I spent the day with them. And I'm even part of the movie now. But the biggest thing why I insisted on still getting my story in there was because I think the thing that makes this movie stand apart from any of the others is that it offers a solution. So many of these things, one of them particularly comes to note that I won't mention, that is a big rant about how big pharma and we've all been hoodwinked, and it's a big rant, but it doesn't offer a solution. And what they really focus on here is these stories of Brian's patients and other people that they've found, Air Force pilot that had to stop flying because he couldn't see anymore. And he reversed that and got flying again just by cutting carbs out of his diet. And what they were so interested in getting me to talk about was the clinical guidelines. Because finally, doctors have something that they can point to and that they can have confidence in following and feel like there's something behind them that they can turn to if they end up in trouble on the legal front. So she's been scout, like literally 5 minutes before I came up here, I was still talking to her, and we were trying to get something. They're trying to make a new trailer with all the newer stuff in it, like Brian's patients and me, and They weren't able to get all of that done, but and we also they're still scrambling because the movie was going to be called A Big Fat Lie, but they found out about 2 days ago that a vegan movie just got released called Big Fat Lie. So they thought, no way that they can ever be associated with that. So they're still scrambling to come up with a new, better fat food fix is one of them, but they're still bouncing that around. Once they settle on it, they've got to get the artwork done. But by the end of this weekend, hopefully even by the end of today, there's going to be a link where you can go and read about it, and even a pre-order thing that you can order it. They're hoping that it's going to come out, Brian, hopefully that's going to come out very early in March. But as is, they're funding it themselves. For the most part, they collected a little bit of money on GoFundMe and stuff like that, but for the most part, they have to do it all themselves. And so it's taken them, like it took me 3 years to get some of that stuff off my website. It's taken them a bit longer than they'd hoped. But I really believe this movie is going to make a massive difference in a lot of people's lives. So I encourage you to go and take a look at it if you can. All right. And so I always end with this, and I always have to give the guy credit. His name is Dr. Jacob Wilson, and he's spoken at a few of our events, and he always finishes with this, but I really liked it, and so I've stolen it from him. What happened? What did I do? Okay. So he always says, why are we doing this? And if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? Okay, guys, please participate in this community and help us to save lives. The number of people that have died and that are sick and that shouldn't be is just astronomical, and we need to fix that.